So for my PD, I would have introduced Scamper, Camper. It's something that my gifted colleagues in my actual building have been talking about, and I would work with them to introduce it. It stands for substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use or purpose, and rearrange. My goal would be to explain the Scamper extension process in 60 minutes or less through practice activities and set a bi-monthly meeting to evaluate its implementation. The competency that is being used is the ability to provide an extension or replacement of the general education curriculum to modify the learning process through strategies such as curriculum compacting and to select alternative assessments and projects based on individual student needs. So I'm mostly focusing on the extension and how to take the basics of what we're learning and push it a little bit further. Now, I'm going to go through each letter just in case there is some confusion. I would go in and we would have a talk about it, such as substitute is to think about what can be changed in a product, problem, or process to be more efficient. I would give them, I'm a social studies teacher, so this is an example. What more could the Egyptians do to better preserve the bodies? Combine, to think about how you can use the same product, problem, or process to make something connecting to the initial product. So using another invention from Mesopotamia, what could be combined to a plow to advance Sumerian culture? And I am going a little bit faster. I would go more in depth with each of these, and we would go over some examples. And I would, for some of them, obviously they're not going to have the prior knowledge that my students would have. So I would give them some examples and we would work on creating these extensions just so we can kind of see what the kids would be coming up with. Adapt, to think about what other things can be made from the product, problem, or process. For example, silkworms produce the fabric of silk on the Silk Road. A lot of silks there. But what other use could they have for profit? Modify, to think about what would change if the size, shape, color, or any other type of thing were different than initially in the product, problem, or process, such as how would building the Egyptian pyramid be different if it was built from Harappan mud bricks? Put to another use or purpose is what other company or entity could use the product, problem, or process? An example is, in what other ways could the Egyptian burial process help Egyptians in everyday life? Penultimately, we have eliminate, to think about what can be streamlined or removed in the product, problem, or process. What step in the mummification process could be removed while still having the body properly preserved? And lastly, rearrange, to think about what might happen if you change the order of the product, problem, or process. What would happen to the corpse if you change the order of the mummification process? Now, one of the reasons this, I believe, works is focusing on eliminate. Just to even answer this question and to take it that step further, you have to know the mummification process and how it works. It's going to take the understanding a little bit further and push them to think and really say, okay, what happens if you don't have salt to dry out the body? What are the complications going to have? If you still have the organs in, what is that going to do? If you don't wrap the body individually, having that thought process, you need to have the basic information down. So you are extending what is learned. Now, in my professional development, I would give everyone a flyer that I would make, and it would look all nice and all that stuff, and try to be as pseudo-professional as possible. It would say, McDonald's is looking for new entrepreneurs to build our business. Obviously, they're not. It's kind of with the understanding that it's a joke. We would love to grow and improve our business. If you have any ideas, feel free to submit them here. And I would give everyone 7 to 10 minutes to brainstorm their business plan that connects to a letter of Scamper. We'll then kind of share out of our ideas, and we'll look at them and we'll discuss them, probably about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how long it takes. Now, some examples that I were able to think of really quickly for combining. Maybe you combine Beanie Babies with McDonald's, so the kids will spend more money to get the different Beanie Babies as toys in their like Happy Meals. Another option is modifying the shape of the patty so they're not circular. They're going to be squared to match up with cheese squares perfectly, and you get a better taste. Those are just some ideas. Like I said, we'd share this out, be a pretty open format, and we'd kind of just experience the thought process that we'd be putting the kids through. Lastly, for follow-up, I would give the students the expectations and examples and explain to them what Scamper is, either in their advisory or homeroom classes, or I would have the teachers do it during those periods, or I would have an assembly, just so the kids are receiving the information and they know what we're asking of them prior to us actually doing it. I will then have to have the teachers try to include at least one Scamper extension so that when we meet again, we have data and we can look at it. I only did one because since it is new, we can later build up into it. And I know if starting anything new, you start with baby steps and then grow to the leaps and bounds. So we're going to try with at least one, and we're going to meet bi-monthly. So it shouldn't be that cumbersome for teachers to include, as well as it's pretty low maintenance of an extension. So hopefully they'll be able to incorporate it pretty easily because it's more question asking and it's more student based as opposed to teacher directed and teacher driven. The students get to pick which letter and how they're going to show it. And at the end of the month, after 2 months have passed, we're going to meet again and we're going to look at which letters are kind of overused and which ones are overlooked. So if we notice everyone is trying to eliminate something, we're going to say, okay, they really get eliminating, but I see very few substituting. Let's try to push that one, or let's try to see if we can include that more. We would then kind of get rid of, like I said, if E is often being used, if eliminating is often being used, we're going to take that one off the table. So for example, the McDonald's project, if they said we're going to get rid of the cardboard boxes so that we can, or we're going to get rid of the plastic straws. And we're going to put things, we're going to have cardboard straws or paper straws. I'm going to say, okay, we have a paper shortage, so you can't get rid of paper straws. What are you going to do? Like, you can't eliminate those straws. What is your next step? After the end of each bi-monthly period, we would come together and determine which letter still needs work, which one is firmly grasped, and it will be an ongoing procedure in which we'll kind of collect that data and we'll move forward in cementing it in our school ideology.